I used to think sacrifice had a reward, that if you gave enough, waited long enough, proved yourself dependable enough, the people you gave everything to would eventually look up and say, "Thank you. You've done enough. Let us carry you now." Turns out, sometimes the only thing sacrifice earns you is a utility bill in your name and a frostbitten heart. My name's Danica Cole. I'm 40 years old, unmarried, no kids. Not because I didn't want any, just didn't have time. When my dad had his first stroke 9 years ago, I came home. Just for a little while, I said. Just until he stabilized, until Mom could manage again. But 1 year bled into the next like snowmelt soaking into old floorboards, and somehow I became the live-in nurse, the chauffeur, the personal assistant, and the one-woman emotional support hotline. I gave up a decent job in Boston. I had been pulling in $92,000 a year as a logistics coordinator for a regional freight company, solid benefits, 401k, even travel perks. That all went out the window when Dad fell, and suddenly I was spending my days measuring blood pressure and arguing with Medicare on speakerphone. There was no salary, no health insurance, no retirement fund, just a vague promise from my mother. "You'll always have a place here." A place. Not even a room. Just a place. The house was always supposed to be ours. Mine, Kyle's, shared somehow, eventually. A colonial-style place in a good part of suburban Massachusetts, just outside Lowell. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, with a wide porch and a backyard shaded by maples. My parents bought it in 1984 for $118,000. Zillow now estimates it's worth around $850,000, maybe more given the recent kitchen remodel I paid for, quietly, with my dwindling savings. But I never thought of the house as an investment. I thought of it as home. Until I overheard Mom on the phone with Kyle. "He needs it more than she does," she said, her voice hushed but not hushed enough. She's always been able to take care of herself. I froze in the hallway, half balanced on the stairwell, groceries in hand. At first I thought I'd misheard her, but then I saw Kyle's old Toyota in the driveway 2 days later, and Mom smiling like she'd won something. That night, I sat at the dining table, trying to ask casually, "What's Kyle doing back?" "Oh," she said, like it was nothing. "We transferred the house to him. He's moving in. He needs the stability." I didn't speak. I couldn't. My mouth opened, but it was like my brain needed extra time to translate what she'd just said into a language I could process. "Kyle," I finally managed. "You gave Kyle the house?" She waved a hand. Not gave, technically. We just put the deed in his name. It's still the family home. We thought you'd understand. Understand? Kyle hadn't held a job in 5 years. Last one was some half-hearted marketing gig for a vape startup that imploded after 2 months. Since then, it's been unemployment, online poker, and daydreams about becoming a YouTuber. He's 37, still insists on calling me Danny Girl, like we're kids, and I'm still the bookish older sister who always let him eat the last cookie. My parents called him sensitive. I called him spoiled. But it wasn't the deed that broke me. It was what came after. I pulled out the household folder from the filing cabinet I kept in my room. I needed to see it with my own eyes, make sure I wasn't imagining it. Power bill? In my name. Averaging $450 a month in winter. Heat in Massachusetts is no joke. Gas? Also mine. Around $130 monthly. Homeowner's insurance? Danica Cole, primary policyholder. Annual premium, $2,960. And property tax? Well, that had still been in my parents' names, but I'd been writing the checks for the last 3 years. I totaled it all up right there at the table. Electricity, $5,400 per year. Gas, $1,560 per year. Insurance, $2,960 per year. Property tax, $8,700 last year. Groceries, household supplies, prescription runs, easily another $12,000 annually out of my pocket rough total. Over $30,000 a year I'd been putting into this house, quietly, without complaint, like a dutiful daughter should. That's over $250,000 in the past 8 years, and they gave it to Kyle. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't cry. I just cleaned the dishes while Mom told Kyle which of the bedrooms he could take. That night, in bed, I stared at the ceiling for hours. I could hear Kyle's voice drifting up from the living room, talking about tearing down the garage to build a man cave, and maybe renting the basement to a friend. I didn't sleep. Instead, I ran numbers in my head, ran memories, like the time I missed my college reunion because Dad needed someone to drive him to his specialist. Or the Christmas I spent in the ER with Mom instead of flying to Denver to visit my best friend's family. Or every Sunday night I stayed in to cook, while Kyle posted pictures from some bar with friends I'd never met. It wasn't just the money. It was the years. My whole 30s, gone in a haze of errands, doctor's appointments, and soft-spoken self-erasure. And now I was a guest in a house I was paying for, a house I'd never own. The next morning, I called my old friend Amelia, who works for a law office in Boston. I asked her a question I never thought I'd ask. If all the utilities are in my name, I said, what happens if I stop paying? She didn't hesitate. Legally, nothing can happen to you. It's your account. You can cancel it any time, especially if the house isn't yours. And the people living there? Well, that's their problem, isn't it? I hung up, a cold calm settling over me. Not rage, not revenge, just clarity. I started organizing the paperwork that afternoon, called the utility companies, reviewed the insurance policy, pulled every receipt from the last 5 years. I didn't say a word to Mom or Kyle. I smiled, cooked dinner, even folded Kyle's laundry when it backed up in the dryer, but inside, a countdown had begun. I've heard it said that revenge is best served cold, but I've also learned that revenge doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's as quiet as a turning doorknob, as soft as a radiator that no longer kicks on. I didn't throw a tantrum, didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't even argue. That's what they expected. That's how the family trained me, to swallow it, smooth it over, and keep the peace. I was the duct tape of the household, keeping things functional no matter how broken they were underneath. But not this time. This time, I got organized. I started with the utilities, since they were the easiest and the most directly tied to me. I went down the list with methodical calm. National Grid Electric, Danica Cole, primary account holder. Online portals showed usage history, payment records, and more importantly, the terminate service button. Gas and heating, Columbia Gas, still under my name. Next due date in 11 days. Noted. Homeowner's insurance. Annual premium already paid through my card. Time to make some calls about refunds. And then the fun part, the certified letter. I drafted it with Amelia's help, short and civil. This letter serves as formal notice that I will no longer be financially responsible for property located at 14 Maple Drive, effective 30 days from the postmark date. All utility accounts, insurance policies, and property-related expenses currently in my name will be closed or transferred by that date. I recommend establishing services under the new deed holder, Mr. Kyle Cole, without delay to avoid disruptions. I printed 3 copies, one for my parents, one for Kyle. One for the drawer I called the evidence locker. I didn't say a word in person. I just left the envelopes on the kitchen counter like a polite ghost. For 2 days, nothing happened. Then, one morning over coffee, my mother glanced up from her crossword and said, "What's this about bills?" I took a sip from my mug. "Oh, just tying up loose ends. You said the house isn't mine. I'm making sure everything lines up legally." She blinked at me, her lips pursed. "But you've always taken care of that." I nodded. I did. And now I won't. She opened her mouth again, but no words came. I think that's when she realized something had shifted. Something fundamental. The Danica they knew, the one who always fixed, folded, forgave, she'd gone quiet. And quiet Danica was dangerous. Kyle, of course, didn't say anything directly. He never did. Instead, he posted some cryptic nonsense on Facebook. Some people are all about the money. Sad when family forgets the meaning of loyalty. It got 6 likes. 4 of them were cousins I haven't seen since Y2K. The thing about Kyle is he always believed life would eventually hand him something. A business, a win, a woman. And when it didn't, he played the victim. It was always someone else's fault. Bad boss, bad luck, bad break. I used to try to fix it for him. Now? I watched. I watched as week 2 rolled in and the house still hadn't been switched into his name for any of the services. The gas shut-off date was approaching, and the temperatures were dropping fast. Massachusetts doesn't play around in February. Nights were already dipping into the single digits. On the 28th day, I made one last call to the gas company. "Would you like to transfer service to someone else?" the rep asked. "No," I said. "Just terminate. I don't live there anymore." That night, I sat in my small apartment, the one I'd quietly signed the lease on the week after the deed transfer, drinking tea while outside. Frost laced the corners of the windows like delicate white scars. At 14 Maple Drive, the radiators went silent. I didn't have to wait long. By the next morning, Kyle was stomping around the kitchen in a parka, shouting about the broken system and how people are freezing in their own homes. I kept my phone on silent as the messages rolled in. Kyle: "Hey, did the heating go out or something?" Mom: "Danica, this isn't funny. It's winter." Dad, rare text: "We need to talk. Come home." But I didn't live there anymore. Home is where you're respected. Home is where someone notices when you've been carrying the weight for a decade. 3 days into the deep freeze, Kyle tried calling me directly. I let it go to voicemail. "Danny girl, come on. This is petty. I get it. You're mad about the house. But you don't leave your family in the cold. That's just cruel." He paused, then softened his voice the way he always did when he wanted something. "We can figure this out, okay? Let's talk. Maybe Mom got it wrong. We could work something out." But I wasn't interested in figuring it out. I was interested in watching consequences do their slow, deliberate work. I dropped by the house once that week, not inside, just stood on the sidewalk. Snow was starting to crust over the driveway. The windows were fogged from the inside. A neighbor walked past and gave me a little wave. "You folks doing okay over there?" she asked, nodding toward the house. I shrugged. "Not my house anymore." She chuckled. "Lucky you. Heard the heat's out." I smiled. Imagine that. Then came the Facebook video. Oh, Kyle. He filmed himself in the living room, wrapped in a blanket, holding a thermometer. "This is what family betrayal looks like," he began, voice trembling dramatically. "My sister, who lived here rent-free for years, by the way, cut off the heat in the dead of winter. She's punishing my parents. Punishing me." He paced, tried to look noble and victimized. He said my name. Repeatedly. He begged for sympathy. It backfired beautifully. The comments were a symphony. Didn't you just say the house was yours? Then pay your bills. Your sister took care of your parents for how long? Maybe she finally snapped. Danny's a legend. Even the local utility rep left a comment. Account was closed legally. Ownership means responsibility. End of story. I laughed so hard I had to pause the video. This wasn't just satisfying, it was clarifying. For once, the world saw it. The imbalance, the thanklessness, the absurdity of a grown man whining from a house someone else had carried for years. I didn't need revenge. This question mark. This was justice. Cold, quiet, legal justice. I sent a final message to my parents the following Sunday. I hope you're warm soon. I recommend asking the homeowner to set up utility accounts. No reply. I didn't expect one. What I did expect, what I was preparing for, was the next knock on my apartment door. The next attempt at guilt. The pleas, the lectures, the emotional bribes. But that's Act 3. And I was just getting warmed up. They say silence is golden, but in my experience, silence is earned. It's the reward for walking through fire with your mouth closed, for putting up with late-night arguments, ungrateful siblings, and parents who only remember your name when something breaks or needs paying. So when I finally found myself in my new apartment, alone, warm, and blissfully quiet, I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. Meanwhile, 14 Maple Drive had gone stone cold. The text messages started first. Whining, passive-aggressive little breadcrumbs from Kyle. Kyle, did you really cut the heat? I thought you were bluffing. Kyle, I got Mom and Dad here freezing. Real nice, Danica. Kyle, come on, just pay the bill and we'll figure something out. I didn't answer. Instead, I did something revolutionary. I blocked his number. Just like that. Like deleting spam. That silence? It was delicious. 3 days after the heat was cut, the pipes froze. Not a slow leak, not a gentle drip. Full-on rupture in the upstairs bathroom, the one I used to scrub down twice a week for the record. The water lines cracked behind the wall and burst like a firework in February. I only knew about it because my cousin Jen forwarded me a screenshot of Kyle's newest Facebook post. We're literally drowning. Pipes exploded. This is what happens when someone plays God with the utilities. Attached was a blurry photo of towels soaked in brown water. Kyle, red-faced, holding a space heater in one hand and a mop in the other. It was almost art. The comment section? A masterpiece. Who's the homeowner again? Didn't Danica keep that house running for 10 years? Insurance won't cover frozen pipes if you didn't maintain heat. Better look into that. Even more delicious, the utility company's official account chimed in. To prevent winter damage, it's essential for owners to set up continuous service. Please contact customer support to restore utilities under your own name. Kyle deleted the post 20 minutes later. I knew what was coming next, though. Kyle may have been useless with paperwork and bills, but he was great at playing the victim. The phone calls I blocked? They were now being redirected to my parents. On the 7th day of silence, they came to find me. I opened the door to see them standing there on my stoop, like they'd just wandered in from a snowstorm, despite living only a few miles away. Mom wore her wool coat and that sad little beret she pulled out whenever she wanted to look frail. Dad had his arms crossed, face like granite. Danica, Mom said, with that voice that always curled into guilt, this is all going too far. I leaned against the doorframe. What part is too far? The unpaid labor or the free lodging? Dad cut in. We're your parents. We're not supposed to live like this. And I was your daughter, I said. And I wasn't supposed to go broke paying for a house I didn't own. They were quiet. I didn't give them time to pivot. I went back inside and came back with a slim folder, a black one. Clean. Labeled receipts. Inside were copies of everything. 8 years of electric and gas bills, insurance premiums, grocery totals, renovation materials, a hospital bill for Mom's fall that I paid outright because the copay scared her, a handwritten list of everything I'd covered during their winter trips to Florida, which Kyle got to join for free twice. The grand total at the bottom, $96,842.19. I watched their eyes flicker across the number. Not even fake shock, just blank denial. Mom finally whispered, "We didn't ask you to do all that." "No," I said. "You just stood there while I did." Then I held up the utility shutoff notice for the gas. "It's in my name. It ends with me." I closed the door before they could answer. It wasn't rage that powered me anymore. It was resolve, the slow, firm kind. I was finally standing in the house I paid for, the metaphorical one anyway, the one where peace costs nothing and my name is on every wall. The next twist? Kyle called the city inspector. Oh yes, he thought he'd be clever. Claimed the house was uninhabitable, that I'd illegally terminated essential services, and that it was a retaliatory act. Imagine his face when the inspector showed up, clipboard in hand, and asked for the deed holder. Kyle presented the paperwork, smug. And that's when the inspector pulled out another clipboard, the utility termination record with my name on it, plus a signed statement from me acknowledging I was no longer residing at the property. Kyle's smirk collapsed. I only heard about this because the utility rep, Cheryl, a sharp, gray-haired woman who's been with National Grid since Disco died, stopped by my building the next day. "I don't usually do this," she said, "but I just had to tell you, your brother tried to say you illegally cut him off. We showed him the policy. Then he blamed his cat." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my tea. She handed me a printed receipt, crisp and final. Account closed. Balance, $0, 0 cents. Then she gave me a little smile. "One for the fridge," she said. I didn't frame it yet. Not then. I was waiting. The house sat dark for another week. No heat, no power. Mold creeping in from the bathroom. Kyle tried starting a GoFundMe. It raised $118, and most of it came from one guy named Gary, who thought Kyle's meltdown was hilarious. Mom called a few more times. I didn't answer. Dad sent a letter, but I didn't read it. Just placed it in the evidence locker with all the rest. Somewhere in that frozen silence, the message sank in. Danica's gone, and she took the light with her. By the 3rd week, rumors started circling the neighborhood. Heard the oldest one finally left. Can't believe she stuck around as long as she did. Wasn't he supposed to be taking care of them now? I didn't spread the rumors, but I didn't stop them either. I just bought myself a new winter coat. Something warm, something beautiful. And I waited, because silence is golden. But the sound of desperation? That's platinum. And it was about to hit full volume. They came on a Sunday, the kind of day that used to mean coffee on the porch, jazz humming from the kitchen radio, and my mother hollering for someone, usually me, to check the roast. But this Sunday, it was war weather. Gray skies, sharp wind, the air brittle with cold, and something else. Something coming. I was folding laundry, blissfully untethered, when the buzzer rang. I knew it was them. You feel it in your bones when someone shows up not to visit, but to win. I opened the door to see them standing in the hallway of my building like they'd been dragged in from the cold by guilt or God, or both. Mom in her thick fur-trimmed coat, clinging to a giant purse like it was a shield. Dad behind her, hands in pockets, eyes low like a boy called into the principal's office. They weren't frozen, but they looked shaken. "Danica," Mom said, voice tight with practiced concern, "we just need to talk." I stepped aside. Let the battlefield be indoors. I wanted them to sit, to squirm. They perched on the edge of my sofa like strangers in a waiting room, scanning the place as if shocked I wasn't living in a shoebox. The loft was clean, modern, quiet, everything 14 Maple Drive wasn't. Mom glanced at the art on my walls, the orchid on the coffee table, the radiant heat coils humming under my wood floors. Her mouth twitched. "Very nice," she muttered. I didn't offer tea. "We feel like this is gone far enough," Dad began. "Kyle's trying, but the situation is just getting worse." "Is he?" I said, not blinking. "What's he trying to do? Shovel the mold out with a soup spoon?" Mom tensed. "This isn't about mold, Danica. It's about family and responsibility and—" "Oh, now we want to talk about responsibility," I cut in, reaching down beside the sofa. "Perfect timing." I pulled out a worn leather case and laid it on the coffee table like an old revolver. Inside, the receipts of truth. I flipped through them, slowly, like a priest turning Bible pages. $312.47. Weekly grocery runs for the entire household, including the organic protein powder Kyle insisted on. $840.22. Monthly utility bills for the house I didn't own. $7,228.50. The bathroom renovation after Dad accidentally drilled through a water line. $18,000 plus. Out-of-pocket home care services when Mom had her hip surgery and Kyle couldn't lift her. $450 a month. The gas for all those doctor's appointments, therapy drop-offs, and trips to that overpriced cardiologist on the North Shore. And that didn't even touch the interest on the credit card I used to float them through winters. I looked them both dead in the eyes. I kept this house alive. I kept you alive. And you gave it to Kyle like he was some war hero who earned it. He's a grown man with zero income, a Facebook addiction, and a soft spot for microwave burritos. I was the one who stayed. Mom flinched. Dad cleared his throat. Your brother was going through a hard time. He needed a hand. He needed a job, I snapped. He needed a spine. But instead, you gave him the deed and expected me to keep the lights on like some unpaid house elf. Mom tried again, softer this time. You don't understand. Kyle has different needs. We thought if he had the house, he'd step up. I stared at her. You wanted him to be the man of the house, I said. Then let him warm it. Silence. That line, it landed. I could see it. Dad looked away. Mom's mouth opened, then closed again, like she was about to cry, but couldn't find the tears. So I kept going. Do you remember the winter Kyle spent 3 weeks in Aruba with his girlfriend? The same one who keyed your car and stole your jewelry? No answer. Or how I was the one who fixed the furnace at midnight when the pilot light went out in a blizzard? How I missed 3 work shifts to make sure Dad didn't fall getting out of the shower? Still nothing. I took a breath. Calm. Firm, ruthless. You gave him the house, but you left the responsibility in my name. So I ended it. I didn't take revenge. I took back control. Mom finally broke. I never thought you'd turn your back on us like this, she said, voice trembling. After everything we did for you. For me? I laughed, hollow. You gave Kyle the roof and left me the receipts. That's not love, that's logistics. I stood up. This conversation is over. You need help? Call Kyle. He's the homeowner now. Let him take care of it. Dad rose, eyes dark. He can't handle this. and you know it." "I do," I said, "but so do you. That's the part that hurts most." They left without another word. That night, I lit a candle and watched the snow fall from my bedroom window. I thought about the little girl who used to kneel at her parents' feet, begging for approval. I thought about the teenage girl who paid for her prom dress with babysitting money because Mom said the electric bill came first. I thought about the woman who spent every Sunday meal planning and pill sorting and breaking her back for a family who never once said, "Thank you." And then I blew the candle out. The silence that followed was not empty. It was earned. 3 weeks passed. The last time I'd driven by the house, their house, not mine, I saw a patchy blanket of snow on the lawn and no footprints. The shutters were crooked. The mailbox was stuffed. The front porch light, once always glowing, was dead. Funny how fast things fall apart when no one's paying to keep them standing, but I stayed silent. Let the winter speak for me. Kyle finally cracked on a Thursday. It was just after 9 a.m. when my phone rang. I didn't pick up, but the voicemail? That I saved. "Danica, look, I know things got out of hand. Mom and Dad are staying at some motel now, and I can't keep up with everything. The pipes burst in the kitchen and there's mold in the walls or something. I need to sell. I know you said you're done, but maybe you can help me. Just this once. Just this once." He still didn't get it, but someone else did. Her name was Grace Callahan, and she'd been my coworker, confidant, and quiet warrior of a friend for years. She spent a decade caring for her mother with late-stage Alzheimer's until she passed. Then, like so many of us, Grace was left with no family, no savings, and a spine full of pain the world couldn't see. So I made her an offer. "Buy the house," I said. "I'll back the mortgage. You sign your name." She didn't hesitate. Within 6 days, Kyle signed the papers, desperate and cold, finally ready to walk away from the broken thing he'd inherited but never earned. He got $84,000. He could have gotten more, but the water damage knocked down the value. Mold does that. Grace and I walked through the place together on closing day. She wore a thick scarf and held a clipboard. I carried my camera. "It's got good bones," she said, smiling at me. "Shame it took so long for someone with a backbone to walk in," I replied. And so, we rebuilt. Together. We knocked out the walls between the upstairs bedrooms, added ADA-compliant showers. We kept the big kitchen, updated the wiring, and turned that sad old house into something beautiful. A care co-op. A real, registered nonprofit space for women who are caregivers, whether for family or others, to come live, rest, rotate shifts, and be taken care of for once. We called it the Hearth. The first woman who moved in was a 56-year-old nurse who'd been sleeping in her car after paying her husband's hospital bills. She cried when she saw the fireplace lit and the pantry full. We gave her slippers and hot tea and silence, the good kind. As for me, I moved into a bright loft downtown with clean lines, big windows, and a lease in my name. No caretaking, no errands, no Kyle. On the mantel, a shadow box frame holding my final utility bill from 14 Maple Drive. Balance, $0.00. Settled, closed, done. Sometimes I walk by that old house in the spring and see women sitting on the porch, drinking tea, knitting, or simply breathing. The kind of breathing you only do when nobody's about to ask you for something. They don't know everything that happened there before. They don't have to, because that house got a second life, just like I did. If this story made you feel seen, or even just gave you a little spark of satisfaction, hit the like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, or share a story of your own. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more where this came from. Thanks for listening. And remember, your worth doesn't depend on who needs you. It depends on you.